So you may have heard, and I have heard some Christians say, I have enough faith. I don't need evidence. Like, I don't need this whole field of apologetics. So what does this matter to me? I just have faith. Well, this is a hard one to unpack because it makes some assumptions. And let me share with you the first assumption that this makes. First of all, this assumes that faith doesn't involve reasoning. Okay, this assumption that faith is just faith. It doesn't involve reasoning at all. Well, that goes against just what we see in the scripture. It goes against what we're seeing the early Christians do, such as Peter saying in 1 Peter 3:15 that you're always to be prepared to give a case of the reason of your hope. We're actually told to do this, that we're to be ready to make this case. And it goes against what we see Paul doing, where he's reasoning with people all over the place. Wherever he goes, he's engaging in arguments and reasoning. But it also goes against what we see Jesus doing. And I think this is really important, and maybe we miss this, but when John the Baptist is in jail in Luke 7, and his disciples come to him and say, look, this is all the stuff that Jesus is doing, all these great miracles. John sends his disciples to Jesus to ask a question, which is, are you the Messiah, or should we look for another? Look at what Jesus does. He doesn't just say, hey, go tell John he needs to have more faith. Right? That's not the response that Jesus gives. Like, if your faith was strong enough, then you would believe. He doesn't do that. It says that in that hour, he healed many people of illnesses, that he was performing miracles. That was part of his response. He gave physical evidence of who he was. And then he gives quotes about the prophesied Messiah from the Old Testament. So he reasons with the disciples about who he is, right? So we see Jesus giving evidence and reason to John the Baptist, the prophesied messenger of the Messiah, when he has a question about Jesus. See, Jesus engages with evidence and reason as well. I think that's an important thing to not miss in the Bible, is that faith is not set apart from reason, but that God calls us to reason with him. He calls the sinners into reasoning with him. He calls us to reason with him. And we see the example of reasoning through these people of great faith. So I think it makes one assumption, which is that faith does not involve reasoning. But I think there's another assumption being made that can have some huge implications for our Christian life. And that is that our faith will never be shaken. And you see, that's unrealistic. Because if we go back to the scripture, we're going to see some of the greatest men of God who have their faith rocked to the core. To the point where they're asking God, they just want to just let them die. They just want to die. You see this with Isaiah after this mountaintop experience, this moment where he and the prophets of Baal are engaged in this event where he calls down fire from heaven to prove the prophets of Baal wrong. And we see fire come down from heaven. God answers Isaiah's prayers in the most evident way. What happens after that great victorious moment in this man's life, in Isaiah's life? He gets threatened by the rulers of his day, and he runs away. He runs away and he says, you know what? I don't want to live. Like, this is it. I don't want to do this anymore. He has his faith rocked to the core, and God has to remind him of the trust that they have, and God has to send him back out, as a matter of fact. So it's unrealistic to think that we, in this world full of evil, will never have that faith shaken to the point where we need to have something. We need to have some kind of reason to hold on to. We need evidence. We need something in our life that says, hey, this is still the truth, even if it doesn't feel like it right now. Even if I want to say, I don't like this because it's rocking my world. So I think to say that, hey, I don't need any evidence or reason, I just have faith in God, I think it's an unrealistic thing. I don't want to denigrate the people who say this, because I believe they're doing it out of obedience to God, that they're doing it because they want to trust God with all their heart. But God calls us to love him with all our heart, mind, and soul. And so faith and reason go together. And it's not just because that's the way we were made, but because God knows that we're going to have our faith rocked if we truly believe in him.